Hey everyone, welcome to another video with your buddy old pal. Today I will update my Feral PvP guide for Cataclysm and level 85. It's been about 2 months since the last one and a lot has changed. Let's first examine the new components to the class to make sure we're not missing anything. I'll start with my talent build. Here it is. You'll notice I haven't taken Fury Swipes. This is because given my playstyle, I'm almost never just standing still DPSing my target, nor do I use Savage Roar very often. Fury Swipes will help you kill healers, but that's about it. I also haven't bothered to take Pulverize. That's because it's really only useful against a single target when tanking. Blood in the Water, it's good, but let's be realistic. When you get a target to 25% HP in PvP, if it takes you another full duration of rip to kill them, there's something else going on there. 9 out of 10 times. You could argue it would help you with healers in arena, but using those points for defense is a much better idea. I've filled out Natural Reaction and Thick Hide because I use Bear Form a lot, and the only other places these talents would go would be into Master Shapeshifter, which doesn't justify the loss of these survival talents. For glyphs, I've obviously taken Glyph of Mangle. Mangle is going to be the ability that you use the most by far, so 10% bonus to it is a must. Glyph of Rip is the next one. 15% bonus damage. You've all heard it before. Rip will do the most damage of all your abilities in PvP. For the third one, you can choose either Tiger's Fury or Berserk. I like to go with Berserk because when I use it, I mean to kill someone in the game. If I fail, it means I haven't done something right. Tiger's Fury is great, but those 3 seconds of waiting can be compensated for defensively, whereas 5 seconds of offense can mean the difference between winning and losing. You following me? It depends though. I'd recommend trying it out and seeing which one works better for you. Glyph of Barkskin is an absolute must. 25% crit reduction every minute. You can't really put a value on that. Glyph of Maul for all those tight situations in a battleground. The other option for this would be Glyph of Entangling Roots. Now I know all you guys are a huge fan of that glyph, because everybody knocks on me for not having it, but I mean, it's probably a better choice for arena. In my opinion, that's about it. Glyph of Feral Charge and Glyph of Dash are both vital ones. So how about the new Druid abilities? We have the ability Thrash, which is a bear AoE tanking ability. You'll find, you'll never really find a realistic scenario in which using Thrash is a good idea for PvP, so don't even worry about it. You can even take it off your action bars. Next, we have Stampeding Roar. It increases the movement speed of you and all nearby allies by 40% for 6 seconds. In cat form, you get a passive 30% movement speed bonus from Feral Swiftness, which is a mandatory talent, so if you use it in cat form, you only get 10% movement speed bonus. For you, that isn't worth a global cooldown, but if you're doing arena or you're helping out your flag runner, it isn't a bad idea. However, if you're wearing a 4-piece gladiator set, this becomes completely useless because you're already moving faster than that passively, in cat form at least. But if you're trying to chase people down in bear form, then you're going to need to switch up your strategy to be more successful from now on. So Stampeding Roar has very limited uses. Kind of unfortunate because it sounded really cool on the beta. Lastly, we have Wild Mushrooms. They're little landmine type things you plant that last 5 minutes and do about 1,000 AoE damage per piece. These can be used as snares for balanced druids, and they could also be useful for ferals if they were proximity mines, which means people have to walk over them in order for them to explode. But you have to actually detonate these suckers, which means you have to use a global cooldown to do it and shift out of form. you're never going to really find a good use for these either. So, after reviewing all the abilities druids have gotten, we can conclude that feral PvP abilities haven't changed at all since level 80. However, the strategy has changed immensely. In my last video, I talked about how healing had become very valuable for ferals because our prominent stats are now agility, haste, and critical strike rating, which are all very favorable for quick heals. All of that remains true, and the healing itself hasn't changed. But I'll tell you what has changed. Hit points. The healing scales properly with your level of agility through Nurturing Instinct, but stamina values have become so inflated that any amount of healing at this point in time is very minuscule, and trying to focus on it too much will cause you to lose out in endurance fights. I'm not saying that healing is a bad idea, just that it is far less powerful than it was at level 80. With the way the game is designed now, though, big heals from other people, they mean you'll be surviving for a far greater duration, giving that your health pool and the amount of resilience you'll acquire mitigate a tremendous amount of damage in the long run. So healing as a whole is very important now, but healing for ferals, not so much. However, healing well is what is going to separate skilled ferals from beginner ones. The other major changes to strategy is the addition of large mastery values. Our cat mastery flat out increases the damage of our bleeds, which has honestly grown greatly out of proportion. Feral bleeds are the most reliable form of damage in the game. They're 100% physical damage, they cannot be dispelled, and they can be applied in a matter of seconds, dealing an enormous amount of damage. What does that mean? It means that your greatest stat priorities become mastery and critical strike. But wait, isn't agility feral druid's best stat? Yes. Agility gives you a ton of crit. It also affects the amount of raw damage your bleeds do, so it fits both of those requisites. Thusly, if you want to start running people over in a battleground, get as much agility as you can and supplement it with a ton of mastery rating. But Hengist, what about haste? Haste is a very strong stat for feral DPS. It increases the speed at which you regenerate energy, but think about it. Do you really have that much time in PvP combat that you're worried about being out of energy? Maybe. But the short answer is not really. The fundamentals of feral PvP are generally based on burst damage. Haste isn't designed to be valuable for burst damage. Abilities like Tiger's Fury and Berserk are. Your strategies will vary greatly depending on the class you're facing, but as a general rule of thumb, you want to apply as many bleeds as you can to your enemy and transition into a defensive strategy while they do their damage. This means utilizing bear form, healing, crowd controlling, stunning, and generally just playing it safe. When the time comes to refresh your bleeds and then use your offensive abilities at the right time, you should be near a killing blow. At no point in time should you ever be standing idle behind your enemy auto-attacking as you wait for your energy to regenerate. PvP is far more fast-paced than that, so that's why I say haste isn't all that important. So what am I trying to say? Mostly that you don't need haste in feral PvP. I personally have reforged all of my haste into mastery or critical strike, and am gemming mostly agility and mastery. Blizzard has noticed that there are people out there like me that are doing ridiculous amounts of damage with bleeds, so they've already decided they're going to transfer some of the damage from damage over time to single hit attacks. But there's no easy way to do that without making the class either really boring or changing it up completely. Expect this all to change though, as they've clearly stated that they haven't calculated properly in terms of the mastery scaling and they don't like where it's at right now. I predicted this before Cataclysm even came out. I'm just some kind of a fortune teller, so it's somewhat disturbing to see that it's so unbalanced, but ferals are the least of their problems, believe me. So what about your rotation? What should you do when you see a bad guy? I've stated in the past, and I'll say it again, The biggest problem people have in PvP is trying to execute a boss rotation on a player. You'll lose every time you try this, against a skilled player. I swear. I'll see people walk out of their raid groups and come into a battleground in a tank spec, for example, and they'll taunt me. Come on now, Warcraft populace. It's time you realize that PvE and PvP are two entirely different parts of the game, and the contrast has been made much more defined in Cataclysm. So the Feral DPS rotation has nothing to do with fighting in PvP. When you hear me say that, you're most likely wondering what happens to Shred in a PvP scenario. And so I'm about to tell you. Let's look at the facts. Shred costs 40 energy. Mangle costs 35. Shred is based on auto attack damage, which means its values are affected greatly by Savage Roar. But wait, our strategy is to bleed and defend, so where is Savage Roar in that strategy? The short answer is, it's not part of the strategy. If you're prowled and then you pounce, mangle, rake your enemy, he's going to turn around and return the favor. But what happens after that? You're in cat form with low armor, about 8,000 damage done, maybe, and a Savage Roar with 0 combo points. By the time you're able to get a 5-point rip up, you've probably been stunned and killed halfway. So don't make that mistake. The only time you should be Savage Roaring is if you're berserking or are otherwise not under attack, meaning you're attacking a healer or being healed on the offensive. The point of mangling or shredding is to build up combo points for bleeds, not to deal damage. Remember, 8 out of 10 classes can't do diddly squat about bleeds. If you get a rake and a 5-point rip up, they're half dead most of the time, so all you have to do is survive. So use mangle 8 out of 10 times unless your target is stunned, etc. You don't want to be wasting time trying to get behind your opponent. Just hit him with a mangle. It's not that big of a difference. I think I did the dummy recently, and mangle turned out to be only about 300 less DPS over shred, and that's versus somebody who's standing still, so don't even bother with it. I'm not going to go too in depth about strategies because I don't want you fighting people based on one strategy, because frankly it changes against every class. I do need to address multi-targets though. When you shift into bear form, you operate on vengeance mechanics. This means the more damage you take, the more damage you deal. If you're fighting 2 or more targets, shift into bear form. If you realize you can't defeat them by just mauling and mangling and lacerating, use berserk. Witness the laughable amount of mayhem you will inflict upon your enemies. Don't even try to fight 2 melee classes as a cat. Just forget about it. You're like a rogue without any defenses. I'm not sure if I have any video footage of this type of situation in today's video, but take my word for it. If they don't run away after they've seen you berserk in bear form, they need to reevaluate the situation. Now, when I sat down and decided I would make this video, I was thinking of ways I could explain how to play better in Feral PvP. And then I realized that that would take like an hour and a ton of editing on my part. So I came up with a different idea. I'm going to start a new series. I guess I'm just kind of a series kind of guy. This one is going to be similar to the time-lapse duels, but also very different and easier to make, so I can put them out more often. I'm not going to slow anything down or pause to explain. What I am going to do is commentate on Battlegrounds in the first person, get this, in real time. That's right. I'm going to talk about what is happening in a battleground while I'm playing. Talk about what I'm doing right and why I'm doing it, what my team is doing wrong and how to fix it, and when I die, I assure you I will. I'll explain what I could have done better, etc. I can almost guarantee that if you're trying to learn PvP better, that video series will help you more than any other guide like this. So consider this PvP guide the introduction to that upcoming series, and stay tuned. I can sit here all day and talk about theoretical situations, but the reality is it doesn't mean anything until I apply it to an actual situation. and I'm not the kind of guy that's gonna go around and stage these sorts of things to make myself look good. I'm gonna show you Hengist in his full mortality. So I apologize if you guys were looking to see me go really in depth like I did in the last Feral PvP guide, but I went over everything I needed to in the first one. This is just an update. I'm not sure when I'll put out one of these Battleground videos, but it'll be soon. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.